Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Praveen, and Indian Chemical News for giving this opportunity. It's a privilege to speak in this conference and put my views on the chemical logistics, which is, I don't think anybody of us needs a justification that why it's important. Is it audible? Okay, thank you. This weekend was a very momentous weekend for all the logistics professionals and the supply chain members in our country. We launched our much awaited logistics policy. And the buzzword there which the Prime Minister Modi said about was logistics needs to be with the speed of cheetah. Perhaps he didn't factor the Ghodbunder Road and the Mumbai bypass, which we encounter day to day. On a lighter note, last week some of my colleagues had to travel from Mumbai to back to Surat on the weekend, and it took them 12 hours to reach Surat. That's the reality. Yes, we have launched a much, I'll say, aspirational policy, but I think the issue is the devil is in details. And that is when the actual rubber hits the road, when we start implementing it in spirit and in actual sense. So what we'll do is that we will try to cover some of the aspects, and let's see what are the actual gaps on the ground. When we talk of the respective areas, we'll talk about what are the gaps on the road. I think this, Praveen has already covered in terms of the logistics market. So I don't want to really touch upon this. It's billions of dollars. So I think the moral there is enough work for all of us. The market is growing, and it is not only the manufacturers who are going to get benefited. It is also all the allied services which comes along with the chemical industry that's going to get benefited. Be it the logistics service providers, the technology service providers, the warehousing service providers, the transporters per se. So there is enough on the plate for all of us. This is the similar data for India. Today in India, when we launched this entire policy, the aspirational growth what we have taken is we want to bring down the logistics cost from 14% of GDP. Don't ask me where that number has come from, because I've been hearing this number for last 20 years since I am doing logistics, to bring it to something like 8 to 9%, which is the global benchmark. But the challenge here is even today, almost 70% of our freight travels on the road. Unless this is taken care of, we cannot afford to have 70% freight on the road. This is not the global trend is. Unless something is drastically done in that area, we will not be able to achieve those targets. And let's talk of the road per se. Today, an average truck travels close to 9 to 10,000 kilometers a month. I'm talking about long haul truck, not the short haul truck. You talk to any transporters in the industry, they will say, "Now 10,000 chalta hai." So what that percolates to? It's just a mere 300 to 350 kilometers a day. Definitely the costs are high because of that. And the global benchmark is 1,000 kilometers. So how do we bridge this gap? Definitely that's not going to happen overnight. We have got ambitious plans in that direction, but the problem is the granularities, the ground level realities have to change. We as industry, we as all stakeholders for this have to work together. And of course, government has a big role to play. Like even till today, there is no regulatory authority for transportation of chemicals in India. We have PESO, but PESO's bandwidth is limited to petroleum products and certain specific products, some explosives and these things. But for other chemicals, they still don't have the bandwidth. We don't consider them under the gambit. ISO tanks, which are internationally accepted, are still not accepted by PESO for transportation in India. If you go to PESO for approval on an ISO tank, they will say, no, sorry, I don't accept ISO tanks. I need a tank which is welded to the chassis of the truck. That's the argument they give. So these are the ground realities. So maybe from a regulatory point of view, we need one single authority who will govern or who will regulate entire chemical logistics issues. Yes, government has initiatives right from creating a department within the Ministry of Commerce till then announcing the much awaited PM Gati Shakti program, which is all about the infrastructure development. There are various projects which have been lined up for infrastructure development, be it the DFCs, multimodal parks, Sagarmala project, and so on and so forth. These are going to take off infrastructure. But the realities will hit us when we actually start implementing it on the ground. And that is where it is a tough journey. But yes, it is a very ambitious policy which we announced. And I am personally very optimistic about it. And I feel that, yes, we at some point of time will scale up the journey. So if you see, logistics efficiency is all about infrastructure, services, and human resources. So infrastructure part is taken care under the Gati Shakti program. So that's a mega infrastructure program that we have rolled out. And when we talk of services and human resources, that is being covered under the current logistics policy which has been announced. So let's see what is there in details for us. This is the Gati Shakti program which I have spoken of. There are various pillars of transformation which have been mentioned in that. And it's a very, I'll say, coordinated effort amongst all the ministries that are working on. All the ministries have been brought on a single platform under this program. So it's been given the highest priority. The PMO is directly monitoring it. So we are hopeful that this thing will gain momentum and we will be able to really make some headway in that. It's a master plan, as I spoke about. This covers various gambits, development of the DFCs, the waterways. Multimodal logistics parks is a big ticket item in that. Because as even Thomas sir said, we need to use the dry port he mentioned about Jalna and Wardha. These are the right ways in the direction. Unless that road, the freight actually shifts to road, from road to rail, which is still hovering around 70%, and the rail is just 18% in the country. So unless the 18% goes to maybe 35 to 40, 45%, we will not be able to bring down the logistics cost. So that is a challenge, and that is something which we have to work upon. Chemicals as an industry is not really using the rail options because, of course, its availability is limited, but this multimodal logistics parks will be an enabler in that direction. I think I've already spoken about all of them, what he is talking about, railways, roads, ports, waterways. So these are the infrastructure projects that's anyway happening. So that will happen, but I think along with that, the second piece is all about the multimodal logistics park. And as you know, government has announced 35 multimodal logistics park to go ahead with. Out of that, the first 4 are sort of really taking shape. The first one is expected to come up in Chennai. It's 180 odd acres of land, and it will be a, I'll say, state-of-the-art facility. But yes, for other locations, the feasibility studies are still in progress, so it might take a much longer roadmap. But we are all hoping for this. And we need to shift and try to utilize our transportation need through these multimodal logistics parks. National logistics policies, yes, If you see, there are two, three key things that is clearly coming out. One is, of course, the ULIP platform, the unified platform which he spoke about. Today, there are several systems that we deal with in isolation. So what this ULIP is going to do is going to get all the concerned stakeholders on the same single platform. It's a multi-layered platform where as a user, I will have a seamless experience. Like to give an example, today if I have to verify the license details of a truck driver, once you have an ULIP implemented, I can directly get access to the Vahan portal for the trucks and the Sarthi portal, which is a repository of the license details. So I don't have to do a separate verification at my end, because I can very well get it verified from the government database itself. So that's the advantage it's going to offer. Similarly, take other services like, for example, the Indian Railways has its own tracking system called FOIS. But that needs a separate access. But once the ULIP is implemented, the FOIS data will be also available on the ULIP platform. For the customs department, there is IceGate. So IceGate data can also directly come on the ULIP platform. So it's going to be an integration of various databases available, bringing it on a common platform. But yes, the challenges are immense. And if you see, let's say talk of logistics safety. I was particularly little unhappy, or I'm not very convinced. I didn't find a mention of safety in the entire policy somewhere. Maybe it's there in the fine print, so I'm hoping for the fine prints to come. But still feel that logistics safety is still a neglected area. The latest numbers show that we are, as a country, there are 170,000 deaths happening on the Indian roads. Despite that, I think it is still not generating the, I'll say, the attention which it requires. So when you say 170,000 deaths on the Indian road, this actually transforms to one death on the Indian road every 4 minutes. That is the seriousness of this problem. And we, as logistics professionals, are facing this day in, day out. But I think there is many things needs to be done in that area. And that is perhaps what we are expecting, that once we get a single regulatory framework, so that everybody is bound under the similar common guidelines. So then it becomes a level playing field for all the operators who are operating. So I don't have to do anything extra for my individual requirement. Otherwise, I will not be competitive in the market. At the end of the day, I need to be competitive in the market as well. So if I gold plate my transportation standards, I will not be competitive in the market. So that is what the level playing has to happen. The common minimum standards which the industry has to operate has to be gear up. There are some definitely actions happening on that, but there is still lot of work to be done. Today, the major OEM of this country, I don't want to name them, the two large OEMs in trucking business, they sell the truck as a basic cowl. I'm sure many of you would have seen the way a truck rolls out from a factory. It doesn't have even a cabin. Forget about, then we talk of 3-point retractable seat belts. In fact, there is no helper seat when the truck is delivered to the transporter. This is the ground reality. So unless these things change, like the sale of cowl chassis should be absolutely banned. Only fully fabricated cabins should be allowed in the country. Then only the starting point, somewhere will make the beginning. I think unified platform I already spoken of, I don't want to, okay. Similarly, we are all in the chemical industry. Servicing of tanks is a very, very critical component. We do day in, day out. But have you ever seen how this is done in the industry? It is done at a roadside facility. The entire effluent that is removed after washing the tank is actually drained out in the nala. It's environmentally killing initiative which we are all party to that. So unless these things change, we need to create facilities which are world class, where we have zero discharge facilities available. Things cannot change. It's going to come at a cost. But as industry, we have to pick up the cost. And that is where I call for that regulatory framework. So that I am not a single company or a single vendor or a single associate who is doing this. The entire industry is required to do this. And this is where the growth is going to come if this becomes a regulatory requirement. All the stakeholders in the chain has to implement this. The demand for these stations will go up. A lot of more entrepreneurs will come and join this. So that is where the growth is going to come. So similarly, each and every aspect of distribution safety will definitely attract a lot of growth. Now, just to talk of some of the collaboration which is possible, I think technology. I spoke about seat belts, but these are some of the advanced technologies that's available. Like there are various, telematics is definitely has matured in the country, but still I think we are still not utilizing its value to its fullest because people still just install VTS system just for the heck of it. Unless there is a proactive monitoring, there is a real-time intervention, it's not going to help us. If your purpose is only to check the ETA, you are not doing justice to that project. There are many items which you can take out of a VTS system, but we are not using the full utility of that. These are very basic thing. Now, of course, in BS6 vehicle, these have become norms. But still, as a government, AS 140 was mandated, but still it is not being implemented. There is still a lot of clarifications. There are still RTOs which are not insisting for it during the fitness certificate. So these are the ground realities. All this thing needs to change. So this is an example of a driverless vehicle, which the advanced nations are already implemented. So we can definitely adopt these things. That means the Prime Minister spoke about the drone deliveries. Yes, that is possible. But we need to walk that journey together. This is an emergency response system. This is something which we have implemented. We know that we don't have a state-of-the-art or sort of a basic emergency response also on the Indian roads. So we have internally created an emergency response system where it's a 3-level emergency system. All our hazardous cargo chemicals, tankers are being monitored through a vehicle tracking system. We have a control room which is monitoring every movement. We have very stringent rules in terms of what is allowed, what are the rules on the road, journey management guidelines. And any violation that happens or any exceptions that happens is monitored and corrected on a real-time basis. And in case of an emergency, something going wrong, we have defined a 3-level emergency process wherein the basic response for level 1 would be in terms of giving a remote advisory support. Second would be in terms of support in terms of any infrastructure requirements, infrastructure support that would be needed to handle an emergency. And the third level is all about actually doing a physical intervention. So we have created a team of people across the network where our vehicles are moving. It's almost 3,000 plus kilometers we have mapped. And at every 100 kilometers, we have a 2-member team, which is an ex-police, retired police official and a technical person. So in case of an emergency and if a response team is required to be deputed, this team actually goes to the site and physically helps out doing the emergency response. But look, this attempt is a very small attempt. This needs to be as an industry-driven thing. Niger Globe, which is the ICC wing, is working on a similar platform. Similar efforts are being taken up, but this needs more traction. This I spoke about how the entire BTS system is running, which we have implemented in Reliance. Technology, yes, ADAS, advanced driver systems are available. But yes, we need to first do the basics right. Then the technology is always to your support. We can definitely take advantage. When it comes to emergency response, there are some global benchmarks. Like there is this facility called ChemConnect and Transcare. Some of you may be aware. This is available in US, Mexico, Canada, where they actually render the physical. It's an agency who sort of help in training emergency response, who help in physically attending to emergencies if needed. So those facilities need to come to India. So this, along with government as an industry, various industry associations, we need to convince these people, make an attractive business case for them to come to India and set up shops. Then and have a regulatory authority which will ensure that everybody, every company which is sort of in this particular gambit has to comply to this. Then only we can reach the aspirational growth of the logistics policy which our Prime Minister has unveiled. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.